So just to set the scene, I thought I'd give you all a bit of an intro in my career to date. I'm not actually originally from the food industry. So I actually started out at 16. I went to the Fashion Retail Academy, owned by Sir Philip Green. Obviously, the Arcadia Empire, as we all know, is no more. Started out there at 16, as I said. By 17 and a half, I'd gained a diploma there and was offered my first buy and admin role in the brand that is Topshop. By the time I was 24, I was a senior buyer there, worked my way up quite quickly, was a fade to Philip from an early part of my career. So obviously, as you can expect, that was a few little challenges that came along that way. Then when I got to 28, I decided to transition from fashion to food. So now I worked for the East of England Co-op, heading up the buying department there for everything non-food. And then, as you all know now, I now work for a healthy on-the-go drinks brand called Hydrate, which is quite male-dominated in terms of the brand, lots of male ambassadors. So it's a bit of a juxtaposition that I head up the commercial department there. Sometimes when I turn up for meetings, I don't think they're always expecting a lady to be at the helm. I want to take you through some of the challenges that I've found in my career over the kind of 10, 12 years, and how it's brought me along in gaining respect in the workplace from many different things, from kind of age, gender, different managerial people that I've been around that have kind of helped me gain. So take you on to my first slide. So something that I found when I transitioned from fashion to food and I headed up the co-op was to kind of prove my value as soon as I, was part of that department. All the board of directors were men, all the senior management were men. And not only that, I think the youngest person was probably about 45. So I had the kind of the age and the gender going against me, just like what you were kind of saying in the previous, my anxiety kind of really got to me. And I kind of felt like, I'm not sure I can kind of fill the seat here that's needed of me. So I actually took the time out to go speak to one of the CEO's PAs and kind of find out a little bit more about my first meeting, what the agenda was, and put a lot of research into finding out about the meeting. So the first meeting that I attended, I made sure that I had some kind of pre-ideas. So when I was in the meeting, I knew I could confidently talk to everybody in the room and confidently bring ideas. And then I felt that I kind of gained respect straight away from meeting one, from everyone in there. I also made sure that I set a realistic goal for me and my team to achieve. So by the time I then sat in the next meeting, not only could they see that, again, with respect from them all, but I'd also been able to set goals in my team and be able to achieve them. So I wanted to make sure from the get-go, for my first day when I was in the co-op, that they knew that I brought value to the senior management team. So one of the biggest things for me that I've learned is that I think it's a bit of a running theme of this morning, you're only successful as your team. And to understand that your team's success is your success. Nothing is achieved on your own, and nothing is achieved by just what you can bring to the table or what you can bring to a meeting. So one thing I've really learned is to never meet your needs at your team's expense. So never pass someone's idea off of your own if it's actually someone that's in your team. Not only will they sit there feeling really undervalued, but also they won't respect the fact that you haven't, given them the recognition that they deserve. Other people in the company as well will soon start to realise if you've got a really successful team, you'll start to gain what I call kind of sideways respect of the people who are on the same level as you, and they'll start to see actually you're someone to admire in terms of leading your team and your team's success. And also a really, really key one is to be authentic. Like, we are all human, we all kind of make mistakes, and we can only do so much. And to make sure that you stick to who you are as a person and stick to your personality traits, and just make sure that you try and not be something you're not. I've worked with a couple of leaders in the past whereby if they've been with a certain CEO in the morning or a certain different team member, they tend to be a little bit different when they come out of those meetings or come out of being around that person. I think that your team pick up on that straight away, and you won't get respect from your team or anybody kind of in their environment if they know you're trying to emulate someone rather than taking people's inspiration. So I've always tried to make sure, for example, if I'd been in a little bit of a sticky meeting with Sir Philip Green in a top sign-off, that I wouldn't then come out and start to speak to them maybe how his style of management would be, so they know that I'm someone that is authentic and will manage in my own style. Also to be the kind of independent thinker. So you know, a lot of leaders will have their vision, and a lot of companies have their vision of how they want to take things forward. But it's about making sure that you bring your own ideas and your team see that you've still got your own opinion on things and your way to guide things through. And you're not someone that's just going to go along with the status quo just because that's what's been set out. And also providing my team with autonomy. I mean, that kind of key thing of micromanagement. Nobody likes it. You don't really get the best out of anyone for it. But understanding that you've got a team that's there with their own skill set, and to support them and let them have the correct autonomy, where it's necessary. So a really big one for me that's really helped me guide my career, particularly since I've transitioned from fashion to food. And a little shout out to Queenie from Millennium, who's been a really big part of kind of supporting me with this, is seek advice from other leaders, particularly outside your business. And the reason that I say this is because when you sometimes speak to people in your business, obviously they are, brainwashed a little bit by, what's going on in the company. They know those people personally. They might have their own personal opinions on things. You don't always get the curious advice. I'm not saying don't speak to other leaders within your business, because of course, they do know the business that you're in, but sometimes you can get that really honest outside opinion, and they can give you some advice, maybe what's going on in their organisation and what can kind of help you, guide you through if you're dealing with a difficult managerial task, or you've got a particular person in your team that's not quite giving you the respect that you need. That's why networks like this, Women in Wholesale, are so fantastic, because I'm hoping that everyone on this call today could feel like if they needed any kind of advice or anything, that we could all reach out to each other. So I think having a really strong network around you and making sure that you do seek out other leaders is something that's been absolutely brilliant for me when I had transitioned from that fashion to food. Next one here, a little bit of a photo for you all to see. A really, really, really big one for me has been believing in yourself. And I think going back to Amanda on the anxiety that you said, I think that if you do not believe in yourself, then no one will believe in you around you, and your team won't either. Working at Hydrate, I'm privy to some of the biggest sports stars in the world. Tyson and Paris are now kind of classed as kind of personal friends of mine in terms of they're so involved with Hydrate. And Tyson once said something to me, he said, I could be the best boxer in the world, have the best skill, have the hardest punch, but if I walk into that ring and I do not believe I can win that fight, then I've already lost it. A story to go with. So I was pitching to a major retailer to stock Hydrate, and Paris and Tyson happened to be in the office, and they asked if they could join me on the pitch call. And I thought, you know what, the buyers into sport, just kind of see how this goes. I remember sitting down at the table, and it's a massive account for us. And Tyson said to me, you okay? You don't seem as confident as normal. And I said, it's so important for us. We want to make sure we win this pitch. And he just said to me, Queenie, what you need to remember is that no one knows the brand better than what you do on this call. No one knows the product better. If you believe in yourself, they will believe in the brand, and they will believe in the product. We won the pitch. And I've now never forgot that, it's not always the best product or always, the best brand that gets into place. Like, people buy people. And if you believe in yourself, people will believe in you around you, and your team will start believing in you. Your team will start believing in each other, and it will bring like a really strong spirit around. So, if Tyson says that if he can only win a boxing match by believing in himself, I think that's, great advice for us all to kind of take away. The other thing that also helps believing in yourself as well, everyone's got different ways they like to empower themselves. Mine is I like to make sure that I kind of power dress. I know it's a kind of old school thing to say, but if I know that I'm doing a big meeting or I'm doing a big, good team meeting, I like to make sure that I feel like my hair and makeup's nice, I'm wearing a nice outfit, just to give myself that extra confidence. For other people, it might be, having breakfast with their children in the morning before they leave, and make sure they have time for that so they can go away believing in themselves, that they're making sure that every part of their life they're investing in. Whatever it is that makes you believe in yourself, absolutely do it, because as I say, people buy people, your team buy into who you are, and they all look up to you. My next one is being consistent. I know it's difficult. There's lots of external factors that affect us. We're not robotic. We are all human. But try and always be consistent in our leadership style and our leadership approach. Just your team always know what's expected of them. They always know that, you're not going to be the type of manager that's going to come in if they had maybe, had a bit of a boozy night the night before, or maybe a row with the boyfriend in the morning. They know that you're not going to bring it in to the office. They know that you're not going to bring it into the team. They know that you're always going to be that consistent figure within their working environment. I've had many experiences. I'll use Philip Green again, just because he's a prolific character that everyone knows. We all knew that if, you know, things weren't going well in his personal life, or things weren't going well in the press, or he wasn't happy with something, we all knew on that Monday morning when he flew in and we could hear his helicopter pad, hear his helicopter land on top of the office, we all knew that team meeting, you know, wouldn't be the way that it needed to go. We knew that his managerial style changed. We knew that he, you know, was so inconsistent with how he wanted to kind of guide us through. And it started to, for me, being in my 20s, started to affect me. And I feel like I started to emulate and take on his mood. So I've really learned from that is to always be consistent. And I always know that my team can lean on me, and they know that, you know, I'll always make sure that I'm a consistent figure for them to, you know, to come to for advice, and also to lead them through any projects or anything that we've got going on. Just to follow on from that as well, I always think it's really key to also be a firm leader. So everyone likes to be liked, everyone wants to a certain extent be friends. However, we need to make sure that we stay firm, and that people know that when something needs to get done, and my team know that something needs to get done, I will be at the helm of that, leading them through. Any manager that is a pushover will not end up getting the results out of the team they need, and also they will end up starting to lose respect for other team members around them, because they'll know that, you know, that manager or that leader is not someone that can be firm and make sure that the project is getting led the way it needs to, and they're doing the best by the company and their team. Sometimes firm is not also the right way as well. So if you do need to kind of change your approach, depending on what project was going on, or change your course of action, I think as long as it's done with conviction and your team know and are really clear of the objectives, and they know the reason why that, you know, your managerial style is changing, then I think that as long as you're open and honest, and like I said before, you're being authentic with it, then I think it's fine to change up whether you're firm or a little bit softer, depending on what's needed from the team, your business, and, you know, the powers above. This is one of my kind of favourite ones to talk about, kind of living outside the bubble. So I think we all kind of feel like within our companies, we do all live in a little bit of a bubble. So I take Wow Hydrate, I massively live in the Wow Hydrate bubble, and feel like, you know, what we do within Wow Hydrate, within our Wow Hydrate family of all the ambassadors, you get very consumed with just that. And I always think it's really important as a leader to step outside that bubble. Make sure you do market research on other brands, other companies, see what other leaders are doing, being part of things like today, and not bursting your bubble in a negative way, but bursting your bubble in making sure you're bringing a fresh approach to your team and to your business. A lot of the time we're employed as leaders or managers because we are bringing a fresh approach to business. We are from outside the previous business, so we're bringing new ideas. And I think sometimes we can get stuck in this bubble whereby then we stop having fresh ideas, and we stop inspiring our teams by being very much inside our own company. So particularly within where COVID, I think it's really helped not being in the office part of the time, whereby you can not get stuck into so much your work bubble, your team bubble, and you can have a bit more of an outside influence to make sure that you're still being inspiring, and you're still making sure you're bringing everything new to the business, and your team know that you're someone that they can look up to. I've always liked to think that I can be, if someone said to some of my team, like, who's your role model, I'd love them to be able to say that it is myself, and the fact that I'm not just guiding them through Wow Hydrate, but I'm also trying to guide them through a career path and how to be a strong leader. This is I think sometimes when you're at a lower level, I think you never want to admit your wrongdoings, your mistakes, because you're so fearful that it's going to affect your career path, affect the respect around you, affect any promotions. But I think one of the biggest things is when you do admit your wrongdoings, it shows that you are human, and that we absolutely are all not perfect. There's absolutely no leader out there that's ever made a mistake, or, you know, ever done something that hasn't quite gone right within their project. So I always like to, if something hasn't quite gone right, or if I haven't quite made the right decision, to sit down with my team and be really open with them about it, as much as what they can be privy to, and explain where it went wrong, then how then we come up with the solution, trying to guide them and show them to be open to talk about it. And actually some of our biggest lessons and some of our great things do come from when we make mistakes. And one of a really key one for me in my Topshop career was, we done a massive collection with Kate Moss. I don't know if any of you are Topshop fans, but she done a really big unveiling of it, where she stood in the window at Oxford Circus, the big store 214. And I was looking after the jewellery collection. I was the assistant buyer for the jewellery collection at the time. And I had to really quickly rush through these really fine necklaces that she had to wear for the launch. Where I had to rush through it, my trusty Chinese suppliers forgot to put a coating on it, which stops it, where you use kind of cheaper jewellery from kind of itching the skin. And I saw she put these necklaces on, and within about half an hour, I could see her kind of scratching the back of her neck, and it was getting a little bit red. And she was talking to my buying director at the time. I could see the press were arriving. So I had to navigate myself through, say to her, oh, can I have a quick word with you, Kate? And I had to say and said to her, look, I've made a decision. I think actually bracelets are going to look better with your dress rather than the necklaces. So I asked her to take off the necklaces, put the bracelets on. So the last thing we need is a load of press there, photographing the back of her neck, and then obviously we're getting a bad name for our jewellery. So I had to really quickly think on my feet, had to take a leading role there, even as an assistant buyer, and making the best decision by the business. And I remember doing a debrief with my team after, and they all said to me, why did you take off the necklaces? And I really openly and honestly explained why. The supplier didn't put the coating on, had to make a decision on my feet, and then she wore the bracelets. And I think that by admitting that and by explaining that, it's kind of always shown me that guiding your team and gaining respect from everyone around you is when you do tell them that something has gone wrong and you haven't done something perfect. So one that I think we've all been victim of, I think maybe one we can all maybe admit we've maybe done before as well. Sometimes when we're in a point of maybe heat under a leader or something hasn't quite gone wrong, we can all be a victim of the throwing under the bus syndrome, as I call it, whereby how quickly can I get myself out of this to make sure that I'm not in trouble or I don't look like the person that's done wrong, and you throw somebody under the bus because you're trying to protect yourself or your career. And I've had it done to me a few times, particularly when I was at the co-op, especially when people don't want to admit that maybe something hasn't quite gone right. What I love to do, and I always show my team, that even if a member of my team hasn't done something right, we stick together as a team. We do not throw each other under the bus. We work together to find the solution. We're all in it together. We revel in our highs. We lament together in our lows. And we make sure that there is no singling anybody out, throwing them under the bus. If someone does need to be spoken to because they have actually done something wrong, that needs to be done in a one-on-one environment, and you guide them through how to change that error next time. Ever speaking in an open forum in a large meeting and ever slagging off another department or saying that someone hasn't quite done this or that is only going to not gain respect from everyone around you, because everyone can see through that syndrome, and everyone can see through what you're doing, and everyone can see that you're just saving yourself personally rather than looking at the wider business and also the colleagues and your team around you. So that's kind of one of my biggest, if I could pick one thing out today to say in terms of gaining respect, is to not fall into that syndrome of ever throwing anybody, any department, or anyone under the bus where it's absolutely not needed. So just to kind of conclude today, I wanted to talk to you about, which I think everybody has kind of mentioned today, is that imposter syndrome. Something that I'm not embarrassed to say that I think even probably this morning I kind of had a little bit. And am I good enough to be part of this talk today? Am I someone that's been successful enough in my career to be part of this amazing community? And one bit of advice that I've got that always pulls me out of my imposter syndrome, and something I actually done just before I was my turn to speak, is to, when you've built an amazing team around you and you've got a team that are really part of who you are and really part of your vision and what you are in your company, they pull you out of it. Because every day I look at my team and they remind me why I'm not an imposter and why I am leading well, Hydrate, why I have got the career I've got, because just as much your team, you're only as good as your team are also only as good as you. And I just wanted to show you this photograph here of just some of my team. They go from junior to very senior here. The guy on the far left is actually one of the co-owners, but we celebrate when we need to celebrate, but we also get down and we all support each other, when the business needs us to. This is an event that we all done on Tuesday night. We all had a great time, but then we also all come in Wednesday morning and it was all back to business. And I think that my main thing to be taken out today is that your team is your business success. You're their biggest success as well, sorry. And the way to gain respect is to have them all on board and make them feel like they're part of your career path and your journey too. Perfect, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Queenie. Thank you so much. There is no way that if we just follow half of your advice, if we do 5 of the 10 things you've told us to do, there is no way we're not going to become successful leaders. And I'm really pleased that you mentioned about throwing under the bus. We have to stop doing that, don't we? Because a lot of women
we
do
all
it to
do it.
but in particular, I find a lot of women do it to other women, and it's awful because we all really need to be helping each other out rather than throwing each other under the bus. I've got a quick question. Where did you get all this gold dust advice? Do you just literally read non-stop and listen to podcasts and things like that?
So I didn't want to go into too much detail. I wanted to make sure that I stuck to kind of my advice rather than talking about too much my personal experience. But I've been privy to so many leaders, particularly, let me tell you, being 8 strong years in the fashion industry and working for Topshop, you come across, and it's a really women-dominated industry as well. The amount of leaders that I've come across, buyers that are all fighting against each other for promotion, all wanting to impress Philip, all wanting to impress Jane Shepherdson, whoever is at the helm at the time. I've learned it from everything that I didn't get inspired by, that made me disrespect certain leaders, and I've kind of put it all together. And it's really funny. I found an old notebook of mine about 4 weeks ago when I was moving, and I remember when I left fashion, I had a bit of six-month break, and I went into food. I wrote down everything that when I moved to the next company, I didn't want to be as a leader, and that's what helped me kind of form everything today. And they're the main points that I took out of it, and it reminded me of all the things that I lost respect for. And I thought, nobody's perfect, and I'm absolutely far from it. But I really wanted to make sure that the next company that I move to, I try and do everything I can to gain respect. Because I think once you've got respect, you can bring the most to the company and the most to whatever brand you're working for.
Well, Queenie, I said yesterday that you should write a book, and someone else, Steve Smith, has said right now that there's a book in everyone and that you need to write yours. Thanks a lot, Queenie.
What an amazing compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been absolutely brilliant. There aren't any more questions. Thank you. Just lots of praise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.